Hi everyone, welcome back to Plum Mashable. So for today's video we're going to be making a foiled vellum overlay for our planners. So let's go ahead and get to it. Okay, so a couple of weeks ago I put up a picture of a vellum foil, like a foiled vellum overlay that I did for my July social media planner. And it looks like this. And I had a comment on Instagram from Baker Lane Studio asking me if I had a video on how I made this. And I don't. So I thought I would do one because people asked. This one was using a Planner's Anonymous kit. I'm going to use something different today, but I'm going to sort of walk you through exactly how I did that. And we'll make it together and we'll have a lovely piece of foiled vellum at the end of it. So I'm going to use a piece of, this is an offcut of vellum that I've already used before, but it'll be fine. But it's just the Quill 90 GSM vellum. I just get this from Officeworks. How to lead pencil, there it is. And all I'm going to do is just cut this down to size. So I'm going to cut this to be a B6 size of paper so that it goes in with my melody. So for that I'm going to cut it to 13.5 centimeters wide. So I'm just going to mark it with my pencil for this bit. And I'm going to cut that first. So just grab my paper trimmer out. So 13.5. It doesn't matter if it's not 100% perfect, but obviously I'd like to get it close. There we go. And then I need to cut it to be 17.8 centimeters high. So 17.9, 17.8. Mark that there and then cut that as well. Now when it comes to the hole punching, you can either hole punch at the start or you can hole punch at the end. It really doesn't matter. I like to hole punch at the beginning so that I know exactly what I'm working with. Now I'm just also going to grab just a bit of B6 paper. It's a little bit tall, but it's pretty close, so I'm going to go with it. I'm quite happy with that, actually. You know, because I'm a crazy person. I'm just going to just trim off just a little bit. Just line that up again. Yeah, there we go. There we go. So I'm sure I've shown this before, but this is how I punch my inserts, and this is using the We Are Memory Keepers Planner punch board. I have this set up to be B6, but these are movable and throwawayable, so it is very easy to do. But if you're ever wondering how to do it, I grab a bit of paper that I've already got set up and I mark it up. So this one here is a 9, it's a 9, an 18 and a 28. I'm actually generally okay for it to be an 8, an 18 and a 28, but 9, 18, 28, that's fine. Actually, I'm just having a think because that doesn't feel right to me. Usually it is, yeah, 8, 18 and 28. It didn't feel right. That might have just been I might just be holding it wrong, but I usually have it evenly spread. So just putting that in the hole punch, you push down, and you flip it over and do the other side. Now the next part is, well, not the next part, but if you want to have like a rounded corner, or if you want to have fancy edges or anything like that, you can obviously do that here. I'm going to leave mine as just a plain piece of vellum because I'm really happy with the way that sits. And now we can get to actually doing the stamping. So for the stamps, I'm going to be using this stamp set from Paper Row Studio. It's called Lots of Leaves, and I just thought it would be cute to do a bunch of leaves all over this. So the way we get the foil on is to use this baby. So I know I've used this on my channel before. We did a bit of a playtime. I still don't pull it out as often as I should, but it's the Minc Toner Ink. The Heidi Swapp Minc Toner Ink. So the way I like to use it is rather than putting this into the ink pad, because there is an ink pad you can buy You can load it up, but you have to throw the pad away every time, and I find that just a little bit wasteful. Rather than doing that, I like to put the ink down on my mat, and I just do a little bit of brayering. So I use a little plastic pipette to pick these up. Ryan got a bunch of these off eBay, or not eBay, Amazon or something really cheap, so not worried. Doesn't cost too much. You can use them over and over and over again. I just try and get out as much of the ink as I can, and then leave it to dry, and if it's got a little bit of ink in it, that's okay. I'm not going to hurt it the next time. Always make sure you put the lid on really tight though, because you don't want this to dry out. And then I just grabbed myself a little brayer. This is a Ranger brayer, and all you're doing is just spreading the ink out, because you want it to be a little bit sticky by the time you go to roll it onto your stamps, and that's because it just makes a much better impression, and then will give you a much better foiling result. So we'll start off with this gorgeous leaf. These are so pretty, and these are perfect for foils too. Anything that's simple. The more complicated the image and the more filled in the image, the harder it really is. Like a solid image isn't going to look as good as an outline. So the more you can leave it, the more simple you can leave it, the easier I find, the better it sort of works out. So I'm just going to roll this out a little bit, just so it's a nice even kind of coverage, and then roll it onto my little stamp. You can also put it in and pull it up, that works too. It's really whatever you feel like. And then I'm going to stamp this down. You can use a MISTI for this if you want. I find it doesn't work so good if you double stamp it, so I'm quite happy to put that there. And I'm actually going to leave it just for a second, because I want this to sort of make a bit of a tack sound as you pull it away. So I'm hoping, see, there we go, perfect. That's not, I don't think that'll work, but I'm going to give it a try anyway. So we'll just see. I find sometimes if it's too dry it doesn't work, but again, we'll give it a go. So I'm going to come down on the top here. That's better. Alright, so I'm going to give it a try. I don't mind experimenting and seeing how we go here, so I'm just going to try and put this down in the same spot. I probably won't get it, but give it a try. It's going to be bold, but that's okay. Now, when it comes to cleaning off Minc ink, I think of it like I do Staz On. It needs to be a little bit of a solvent cleaner. Cleaning this up later, we can do that with a baby wipe, and that'll come up fine. But for getting it off my stamps, I just like to use a Staz On Cleaner, just so it gets as much off as possible, and you can see that's basically clean as, so I don't need to worry about that. So I'm just going to go ahead and just stamp out a bunch of these in a bit of a pattern. So you just roll it out, get a nice sort of coverage. You don't want it to be too wet, you don't want it to be too dry. It really does, the more you play with it, the more you give it a shot, the more you'll work this out. But the more even coverage you can give yourself, the better this will end up working. So do a couple more with you so you can sort of see what I mean. That one I think will be okay. Just one more. I'm going to come off the edges a little bit as well, so that it does look sort of like it continues. There you go, that's better. So I need to be a little bit quicker with it. So things I'm learning. So I'm just going to clean them off each time. I do find that if you leave the Minc ink on there too long, they can stain. It'll still work, but they can stain. So if you like your stamps to stay nice and clean looking, maybe be a bit quick with it. know I said I'd come back at the end. I just want to show you something. So you can see at the moment, see how it's kind of gone sticky? This is when I find it's the best to work with. You're going to get the best results from the ones you're stamping at the moment. But obviously it's gone a little bit dry, but there's still plenty here on my desk. All you do, put a little bit more of the wet stuff on top, lid off, and it will pick it up and sort of make it wet again. I don't want to put too much because I really only have 1 or 2 more stamps to do, but I just want to make sure you guys see it. So if I roll this out now, see how it kind of picks it up? Just makes it workable again. No! Oh, panic averted. Just do 2 more. No, actually I'm happy with just that one. Okay, that's all done. Put the lid back on and I'm going to clean up. Now like I said before, when it comes to cleaning up the Minc ink, I find the best way to do it, pardon me, I'm really got the burps tonight, is just with a baby wipe. And my baby wipes have gone missing. Yeah, baby wipes. It's not like I don't have a bazillion baby wipes in this house, but that's not the point. There it is. So, baby wipe. I don't use baby wipes for too much anymore because I find them a little bit wasteful, but for Minc ink it works really well. So first thing is get it off the brayer. So roll the brayer out until you get most of the ink off. That's just the staining that comes with using it, so that's fine. And then I do find that this does come up reasonably easy just with the baby wipe. You might need to use 2. One to sort of get up the mess. There we go. Mess up. Bin. Definitely straighten the bin. And then we use another one just to kind of clean the rest of it up. Not bad, huh? It always looks messy when you put it on your glass mat, but I never find it very hard to clean up. I don't find that the baby wipes work as nicely on the delicateness of the stamps, which is why I use the solvent cleaner instead. So I'm just going to clean these up just while I'm clean them up, put them away, just while I'm waiting for that to dry a little bit. I just want to give it enough time that there's no wet bits, because those wet bits won't foil as well when you send it through. Just a little note about these stamps, they're gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous, and they do come with a matching die set, and I'll show you in just a second what they look like when they're cut out, because I have some spares from a card I made. They end up looking like this. Like this is just stamped and cut out. Like there was no colour added to these, no anything. That was just plain black ink. So pretty. So pretty, so delicate. I just think they add a lot, and I'm excited to play with them a little bit more actually. Alright, now that I've got all my mess cleaned up, I'm going to pull this in and just have a look at it. So I've got some little bits of splatter around the place. I didn't do that on purpose, but considering I've done it, I'm actually just going to grab what's still on the pipette and just try and knock it off to get a little bit more splatter, because I actually think it will look really cool. You guys know I love my splatter. Completely random. Just, oh, that's cool. And that will be it'll be interesting to see how that foils. I'm honestly interested. Clean that up before it gets sticky. Alright, I'm going to leave that just for a second, just to dry. Just make sure it's completely dry before we send it through the foiler. The fun part is now deciding what colour foil we're going to use, because I have far too many colours. I do have a teal though, so that's not teal, it's mint, but same thing. It's just a smaller bit of it. Something with some pink. So let's have a look. see if that's enough. Actually, it will be enough. Okay. So I'm going to use the teal. Mint, sorry, not teal. Mint. I'm going to cut off the excess. So this is Minc. It's Heidi Swapp Minc foil. I like to use the Heidi Swapp stuff. I find it works reasonably well. Like anything, it can be hit and miss. And especially with foiling, I think I've said this before. I hope I've said this before. The trick with foiling is to not expect it to be perfect every time. I think if you go into it expecting it's going to be absolutely perfect, you will always be disappointed. Whereas if you just sort of accept the fact that there might be some mistakes or might be some bits that don't foil so great, you'll sort of you won't be as disappointed with the result. So for example, if I have a look back at that sunflower one that I did, this one's not perfect. It didn't get as much foil. Actually, I'm just going to pull it out. I'll do zooms, obviously. But like the one at the bottom isn't perfect. I can see it hasn't foiled as well as some of the others have. I've got a little bit of excess foil at the top. It's just, they don't always work. But I think if you look at it as a whole, it is very, very effective. Now the other side is always going to look a little bit ugh. Nothing you can do about that. But I find it's really pretty. And of course you don't have to do this on vellum. You could do it on anything. You'll get the same result. Now just another side note, if you don't have stamps or you don't have this toner ink and you really want to get into foiling, you can use a laser printer. Now a laser printer prints with toner ink, which is what this is. That's what reacts with the foil and that's what will create the foiling effect. Obviously you can't use stamps for that. You'd have to actually sort of digitally put them into your computer and scan them and do a whole bunch of stuff, or you could just obviously use images from a computer, but that is a way to get around this. And you can print on vellum with a laser printer the same way you can print on anything with a laser printer, so you can get away with it. The only thing I have found that you can't print on, because I tried, was to print on acetate, because the acetate that you needs to be a heat proof acetate, because it needs to go through the printer, which is hot, and then needs to go through the foiler, which is hot. So yeah, that doesn't work. You can get a heat proof acetate though, but it's very expensive as far as I've been able to see. Okay, so this is still drying. It's probably going to take a little bit longer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this for a couple of minutes and I'll come back and then we can foil it together. Okay, so I've turned my Minc on. I've turned my Minc up to 5. I tend to find with vellum it works better the hotter it is. So I'm going to move that round. Put the foil down on top. I'm having fears. It still looks a little bit wet, but it doesn't feel wet, so I think we'll be okay. To make it a bit easier on myself, I'm going to put this upside down. There we go. I'm going to put it in the pocket and send it through my Minc. Okay, so we're through the Minc. These are a couple of little tips. Number 1, you don't need to use the plastic thing. You can send it through without it. I find the plastic thing works most of the time, but we'll find out in a second if it happens to have not worked this time because it holds on camera and so then it just doesn't work. You can also send it through just using baking paper if you need a little bit more heat. If you have a laminator and not a Minc, you can still do this. I will link the video down below where I do laminator versus Minc. You can still do this technique using the exact same things I just did, just except using a laminator instead of your Minc machine. If the heat isn't enough, that's when you've got to play with the sort of sandwich you send it through with. But you can get similar results. Now I always give it a rub, and then I'm going to show you the 2 little tips that I do whenever I do foiling now. So first thing, try as much as you can to keep the foil on the bit of paper, because that way you don't have to worry about the next bit and lining it back up again. Second thing, oh sorry, I always give it a bit of a rub. I don't know if I said that or not, but I always give it just a little bit of a rub before I pull it out. Second thing, peel it off and have a look at what your corner looks like. In this case, my corner actually looks good, and I can sort of see that I can see that it's reacted with something, it's stuck. So I never do the big pull anymore. It's always a slow pull. so I can have a look at it. And that way, if it's not quite, I don't like it, if I don't feel like it's foiled well enough, I can send it back through now while everything's still in the exact same place. I think this is going to be okay. Still going to pull gently though. Oh, that's actually foiled beautifully, at least at the top. And the speckles, ah! Okay, we've got a couple of bits that aren't perfect. Oh my goodness! There's a couple of bits that aren't perfect, but overall, I don't know if you guys can exactly see this. You'll definitely see it when I do zooms in. It's actually foiled really beautifully. It's picked up the detail. It hasn't gone too much. Sometimes when it goes through and it's just that little bit damp, it can almost squash. So if you have a look at like some of the spots, you can sort of see they've been squished. Even that one that we did first has still turned out really, really beautifully. This one's the only one that has sort of got a bit of a missing bit, but even then I actually think it's fine. The only thing that I would say is not an issue, but it happened a long time ago. When I foiled it, it's got some of this on the actual carrier, the plastic bit. So sometimes some of the ink that's still on that transfers onto whatever I've got. So I can just see a little shadow of some writing on the back. Not enough for me to worry about. It's fine. That foil has come up beautifully. Oh, I'm so happy. I'm just going to put this on a white background just so you can sort of see it as opposite to the black. Obviously there will be zooms and everything, but that has actually turned out really pretty. I'm really happy with that, and I actually really love the speckles. I was worried that they'd look silly or be overpowering, but they're really not. They're very subtle and very pretty. Now, something that I get asked a lot while I'm talking about foiling, something I get asked a lot is sometimes you get these kind of transfers of just very minuscule bits. So where there is no ink, but there's like a shadow of the foil. It sometimes happens when your machine is either too hot or too cold. It hasn't quite got the right, and it sticks to places it shouldn't. It's another one of those things you kind of just have to accept when it comes to foiling, that sometimes you get it sticking in places you don't want it. I generally find that the hotter it is, the less I get that, and so that's why I'm quite happy to send it. I like sending it through on the high heat, with just the plastic. I find that works really well. But if I was really worried about it, I might send it through with baking paper instead. I actually think it adds a nice little ethereal bit to this, so I kind of like it. So there we go. That's how I use stamps and toner ink to make these really pretty foil vellum overlays. These would be beautiful in cards as well. If you imagine sort of like a card with maybe an oval cut out of it, and the vellum onto like an ink blended background, or even just a white background, would be absolutely stunning. There's lots of things you can do with this other than just making a piece of vellum for your planner. It would be beautiful in so many different ways. And once you've got the decorated vellum, like I said, it looks a bit bad on the back, but once you've got the decorated vellum, you can do basically anything you could do with another bit of vellum. Really nice for shakers too. I have an idea for some Christmas things like this, so let me know if you're interested in that. But that's it for today. I hope you did enjoy this video. I hope it answered some questions. I did sort of aim to put a bit more information about foiling, so I'm hoping I did that. I still get tons of questions about foiling. I'm not an expert by any chance. I just like to play, and I sort of come up with answers by just experimenting. So that's my biggest piece of advice. If something's not working, change a setting and try it again. It's a pain. You do end up feeling a bit wasteful, but I think you do end up knowing your machinery and your tools a little bit better, and that kind of can help. If you did enjoy this one, please give it a big old thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to my channel. You can also check out my other foiling videos. I will link them down below. Hope you have an absolutely awesome rest of your day, and I will catch you again in my next video. Sending lots of huggles.